Tamed! Hooray! Welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. Last episode, we finally built out our home a little better. We got our bedroom and kitchen, as well as we worked on our defenses, and we added these spike traps, kind of as an experiment. So today will be interesting to see if these do anything or they are the death of us. Today's jobs are going to be the usual chores. We're almost out of wood, so we need to go chopping, and we'll do some planting and growing. But we also need to start choosing a new research project. I think the simplest thing for us to start would be complex clothing. It's going to unlock some clothing that's going to be easy to handle with, but also we'll be able to manufacture stuff and sell stuff. This is also something that is within. Unlocking complex clothing would also allow us to get leather tanning, and leather tanning would then allow us to get military clothing, and hopefully we can start resisting damage, because there's not much more we can do other than that. Four out of 5. So mainly our days have been just bouncing back and forth between research and farming. Pretty much this is going to be Condor's life until we can continue improving. Occasionally we also pause to try and train death or cook up breakfast, but otherwise it's pretty boring right now. What I also am building is it's called Game of It's sort of like a little chessboard, and it'll work on intellectual skills. The idea with this, it will satisfy his recreation, keep him indoors when it's raining so he doesn't have to play hoopstone outside, and do work on his intellectual skill. Hey, and he's finally started playing it, and if you have a look here, we can see the intellectual skill is going up. Cool. So we just had an earthquake. Some structures can become damaged and roofs can collapse. If we jump to look where it happened, apparently it happened here, but I'm not actually seeing any changes. Maybe something here was damaged. And now we've got an eclipse. Lucky it doesn't affect us as we don't rely on solar. One of the other things we got in the last episode is we had this random rat. Alright, we just had the next event come through. A manhunter pack. Except it is 2 Yorkshire Terriers. Clearly Randy Random doesn't think we're a big threat. If we look at the health, they've got the manhunter, and I guess that's about all there is to them. We'll be enacting the usual plan of setting everyone to be within the compound, and then we're going to be relying on our traps. This will actually be a really good test to see if these do anything against be a really good test to see if these do anything against the pathfinding, and if they're actually going to damage these terriers at all. I guess we'll see what happens. They sound awful. And to top it off, while we're watching these Yorkshire Terriers going around, we just had a local alpaca go mad. But it actually seems like none of them are able to make their way to Condor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to force Condor to go stand out here, which will hopefully entice any of these terriers or... Okay, no, we can see that they are moving to melee attack Condor. This one as well. What about the alpaca? Also moving to melee attack Condor. Well, we've got 3 traps, some spikes. Let's hope it works. Alright, so they go really slowly, and they do take damage. That is fantastic. And the first trap will take the first thing. An alpaca. The alpaca didn't die. I wonder if we're able to finish off... We probably shouldn't finish off an alpaca. This is fantastic. So our spikes didn't take any damage, but they did damage the enemy. Let's see how much damage it did do. So I can't actually tell what injury came from what, but we took them down. This is quite encouraging. I think I'm going to stack these up a little deeper then, and it will hopefully reduce the number of spike traps we need and weed out the tiny little like rats and I guess Yorkshire Terriers. We are going to attempt to rescue this alpaca. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Worst case, Condor gets more medical practice. It does not get special medicine though. There's a bit of mad scientist vibes going on here. Except it's a monk trying to heal an alpaca. Anyway, we can see that the alpaca is no longer in immediate danger and may survive. Alright, we've patched up the alpaca. It's in extreme pain and can't move, but we'll see what happens. We have a pack of rare thrumbos coming through. There's not much we're going to do with these because these will wreck us truly, but it's just a nice sight, I guess. So it seems like because these two corpses have started rotting, they are no longer able to be butchered. Which is a bit of a shame, but also on a moral standpoint, I feel better for not butchering dogs. Speaking of our animals, we gained this rat last episode. It's self-tamed. I asked for suggestions for names, and one of the suggestions was Remy, as in the rat from Ratatouille. And I think that's a great idea. So we can go here, and we can call it Remy. Remy has joined the colony. Just while Condor is over here repairing our traps, we can see we just had an ambrosia sprout. This is pretty exciting. It's not too far away. That is a lot of ambrosia. So ambrosia is pretty cool. Not something we would necessarily use, but it's the start to some like natural drugs which we'll be able to sell if any traders come past. Best thing for us to do is to whack a giant growing zone over all of this. Disable the sowing, but this means that we're kind of like keep track of the ambrosia now. Then when our ambrosia is ready, we'll be able to go over and harvest it for some good money eventually. 5 out of 5, that is really exciting. What this now means is we can start training death on Hall, but also guard. And as I said, once we do guard, we can then ride death. So I was having a think about the alpaca that's been roaming our base. We can tame the alpaca, we can't hunt. But if we tame, we can start getting things like wool, or if we get certain animals, we can start getting things like milk. Wool and milk are not only commodities we can sell, but they'll also be useful for various survival. I'm not sure this is the first animal we want to tame, but if we look at the list, there is a whole lot of animals on the map. We have everything from wild boar to thrumbos, all the way up to a whole herd of alpaca. So we have this wild pack here, and I think for now, we are just going to select 2 of them and say tame. This will be our morning job. Alright, as we were doing our morning chores, finishing repairing our traps and some cooking, we just had another raid. So they're a group of tribes people, and they're attacking immediately, which always worries me. And if we have a look, it is one person with a club. Other than their chemical interests, they are actually not a bad colonist. So if we can, we might hold on to this, prioritize healing them up, and try and recruit them. It depends how badly we hit them, though. Alright, they've slowed down through the spikes again. Fantastic. Oh, yes! Big fan of these spikes. 1, 2 traps, and they are dead. That's a shame. I wonder if there's any way we can maybe have some traps that are less aggressive? They dropped us some medicine though. That's always nice. Anyway, we're going to make a new visitor bed up here. We're going to allow our animals back out, and we are going to set Condor back to unrestricted so he can go work on this visitor bed. So as you can see, we failed to tame the first alpaca. We can tame them again, but there will be a cooldown. One thing to note is that alpacas have a very little chance of attacking back. In fact, I think it's a 0% chance. Also failed. Luckily, there's a whole bunch of alpacas around here. I'm going to keep going until we can tame one of them. Fail. Fail. Tamed! Hooray! We now have an alpaca. Hooray! We now have an alpaca. This is quite fun. They're always going to be in good health. We will keep their tameness up so they don't wander away. But the most interesting thing we can see about them is down here. Wool growth 0.3% about. That's fantastic. As it goes all the way up, we're now going to have an alpaca. And an alpaca means we get wool, and it's going to be fun. So one of our next activities, now that we have animals and we're going to start making an animal farm, I guess, is I should probably stop having them wander around all over the place, and I should have them closer to their actual food. So what I might do is I might dig out some of this area and make it a proper animal area. Yeah, I think down here is going to be best. This is going to be Condor's next job. And that's a second alpaca tamed. Fantastic! Speaking of animals, caravan animals walk in. They seem to belong to a caravan and they still carry packs with valuables. I can collect them if I tame them or kill them, otherwise they'll leave in a couple of days. Let's have a look at what we had. So if we have a look, elephants, a 10% chance of seeking revenge if we fail the taming. But I'm very curious to see what's in them. And so I think we're gonna try it. Oh, thank you for warning me. See, they have a 10% chance of attacking, but this is more important that they require level 7 in training, and Condor only has 6. So maybe we're going to have to leave this for the moment, and if they are still around by the time Condor goes up to level 7, we might give it a shot. Okay, we were just mining this out. But we just had a blight, and a blight is quite serious. It's like a disease in your plants. So anything that has the blight needs to be cut. Yeah, unfortunately, we're just going to have to keep Condor working to cut all this blight out, because the blight will spread and kill the rest of our crop. A combat supply has just come through. Again, while we were working on our traps. Almost prophetic. We definitely do not want to aggravate these guys, because you can see they are carrying an assortment of guns, as you might expect from a combat supplier. But what we might be able to do is sell to them, and selling to them will allow us to get more silver. So there's not a whole lot that I actually need from the combat supplier, but as we can see, they will take our leftover beer and weapons, which will be just a little bit of coin for us. Otherwise, they're happy to roam and do what they like. And again, while we're mining, we were left a gift. Wow, okay, that is quite an expensive gift. Plasteel is one of the high-end items that you get towards the end of the game. It's really good for like constructing the spaceship, or higher tier weapons, armor, or things like bionic limbs. That's pretty cool. A long way off for us though, so it might just end up another treasure to be sold. And Condor has given himself food poisoning. We've had this before and it wasn't particularly nice. He's also got hypothermia, which is a bit of a shame. I guess I've been neglecting this. As we're coming into fall, or autumn if you're in metric, it must be getting colder. So one of the things we need to work on is that complex clothing. But in the meantime, there might be 1 or 2 tricks we can do. Oh, goodness. All right. Just as Condor was starting to recover from his food poisoning, he has gotten it again. So that kind of resets the timer, but he's at major still. And there comes the break risk. We can see he's in pain. It's cold. It's dark. But he's got a dog. So one of the things we're doing is we're moving the hayloft over here, and we're going to be moving all the hay as well. Oh man, okay. We are down to raw foods, which means it's time to unlock the pemmican. Not our favorite, but it's going to be better than eating raw food. That was pleasant. Our next big challenge coming up that I really should have addressed earlier is, as it's getting colder, we can no longer grow in some of these areas. It gets too cold. It's not saying it's impossible, but it's likely that plants just like snap freeze in the day. Worst comes to worst, we don't get to feed our animals. If we don't get to feed our animals, then they might die, and maybe that's a source of food in itself. It's rough, but we live in a rough world. On the bright side, Condor seems to have recovered from his food poisoning, so he's back to 100%. I would like to put a wall down here and up here, but instead of using the precious wood, I think our next tactic is going to be grabbing some of the existing structures around here. So what we can do is we can claim these, claim all of that, and then ask to uninstall all of that. It's a little bit cheesy, but it's going to help us in the long run. We are now definitely into winter, but any food that we can get will help us a lot over the coming months. Alright, we have an issue. Dole doesn't actually eat hay grass, I just found out. And we can see here he's struggling for food. So what I've had to allow is Dole is now got a special area called Dole and will be able to eat some of the pemmican. This is an issue because now both Condor and Dole are on this last stack of pemmican. We do have these 2 emergency meals, but I'd really rather not use them. Just got the warning for low food, and I agree. To keep Condor's mood up, I am making a nicer chair for him, rather than the standard stool. What we're making is a cloth armchair with some of the remaining cloth that we have. Takes a lot of work, apparently. And let's see what he's made. He's made a normal quality chair. That is good enough. So we're just going to move this one out the way. And we're going to reinstall this in position there. And there he goes, researching. So now when we look at his needs, he is pleasantly comfortable. And you can see his comfort is still rising. It also brings the quality of the room up a little bit with the impressiveness and the wealth. But not significantly. That is a shame. The wild llama looks like they hit the trap over here and now they're bleeding out. I think we're going to have to let that happen. We need food bad. And we're going to take that food straight away and start cooking it. I would try and make more pemmican, except pemmican requires some like plant matter as well. So simple meals are the best we get, and Dole is just going to have to eat meat from a barrel. Anyway, our quest is back to researching, trying to get complex clothing, which will allow us to get some warmer clothes and not have to worry about the cold so much. I'm a little bit worried what we're going to do through this winter, as food is not forthcoming. There are some tricks we might be able to do. We can go train some more alpacas and set them to just live among the spike traps. They might die, and then we would have more meat. But obviously that's not very humane, kind of a last resort if you ask me. For now though, we're wrapping it up. I think we have a nice short-term goal coming up in the next few episodes of building up our alpaca farm, as well as getting this complex clothing. All the while fighting the challenge of, we have no food and we're going to starve to death if we don't freeze to death first. If you want to see how Condor ultimately dies, make sure to subscribe. Bye.